Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Barrage. Welcome to the breakout session on innovation and entrepreneurship. I'm a Cal grad. I graduated in 1990. I fell in love with the Bears back in 1982 when I sat in a sold-out Memorial Stadium and watched the play. Ever since then, I've been blue and gold through and through. UC Berkeley's community has a long legacy of developing groundbreaking products, founding companies, and creating entirely new industries. More than 2,000 companies have been started by students, faculty, and alumni, including household names such as Intel, Apple, Tesla, Gap, AIG, Autodesk, my own company, Blue Wolf, which I sold to IBM 3 years ago, which I think is why I'm leading this panel. Light the Way will inspire all graduates to become agents of innovation and social change by building their capacity to turn imagination into novel products or new industries that will make a difference in the world. I'm pleased to introduce two faculty leaders in this field. We're very lucky to have them with us this evening. Sonia Katyal, co-director of the Berkeley Center for Law and Technology and a distinguished Haas Chair, and David Schaefer, the Hubbard Howe Jr. Distinguished Professor of Biochemical Engineering. I did not take any of those classes at Berkeley. Each will speak for about 3 minutes. Then we'll open it up for questions before returning to the main event. So we'll go ahead and start with Sonia. Sonia, welcome tonight.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. I can't say enough how much I absolutely love Cal. I moved cross-country 5 years ago to join the faculty at Berkeley Law. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made. I just feel so lucky every day to be around the students, faculty, and just all the people that make Berkeley the special place that it is. I want to start by talking about things that I think are probably familiar to you, and then talk about a little bit that might be unfamiliar to you. So I think that it's important to start off by noting that Berkeley is number 2 in the country in terms of the success of our entrepreneurship programs. I think that that is like an extraordinary achievement for a public university to take that spot over other schools that we won't mention right now. But the thing that makes Berkeley even more special to me is the fact that our students not only learn the best of technology and science and how to really invoke the knowledge that they get at Berkeley into entrepreneurship. But the other thing that makes their experience at Berkeley really special is the way in which public service is infused in almost everything that they do. So our graduates graduate with not just a sense of how wonderful technology can be, but they also graduate with a sense of how important it is to infuse everything that we do in the workplace with a sense of public purpose. And that is the essence of Berkeley. That is what makes Berkeley special. So in my own life at Berkeley, I teach in the law school, and I help direct 2 centers. One is the Berkeley Center for Law and Technology, and the other is our Center for Business Law and the Economy. And both of the programs have this incredible series of opportunities for students, faculty, but also entrepreneurs to receive training in all aspects of what it means to be an entrepreneur. So after you graduate from Berkeley, you still have an in terms of being able to take different programs and be part of the larger family at Berkeley that serves the startup community. So in the last couple of years, we've offered programs. We offer free programs on all aspects of technology, blockchain being an example. We have startup camps that help entrepreneurs start their own companies. We have VC camps where we teach individuals about all of the aspects that they need to know about VC financing. And all of that is open to Berkeley, but also open to the larger community. And what's important about that is that it's a way for us to be able to remain connected to the ecosystem that drives what entrepreneurship means at Berkeley. And it's a really wonderful way for us to link to the outside community. In my own life, I also teach a class called Law and Entrepreneurship at the university. And it's a really, really, really special class because it attracts students from our legal studies major. And our legal studies major, we get students from all parts of Berkeley, but we get a lot of legal studies students. And legal studies is a major that is incredibly special to us because it is one of the majors that is heavily populated by students who have transferred to Berkeley from community colleges. So the student body of my classes in law, technology, and entrepreneurship is a student body that reflects not just the diversity of Berkeley, but it reflects the diversity of America. And I'm just going to end with this story that is one of in the class, we do a number of different things. I teach them about all aspects of business formation. My special area is intellectual property. So I teach them about all of the different things that they need to know in terms of how to protect their idea, how to monetize their idea. And then we end class by having the students do pitches of their own business plan to different individuals taken from the university and also outside in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I also bring in speakers. So in the last couple of years, I had the young CEO of a company called PlanGrid, a woman named Tracy Young, Asian American, who sold her company to Autodesk for an incredible, for a very, very successful sale. We'll just say that. But it was so inspiring for the students to see this young Asian woman talk to them about her own experiences going to public school in California and being the daughter of Asian refugees. And this is the kind of experience that really speaks to the students at Berkeley because her experience was so much like them. But we've also had, the CEO of Upcodes. We had one of the leading trade secret lawyers in the country come speak to our students. But I just want to end with this last story that to me, I think exemplifies what makes Berkeley so special. A number of years ago, I was finishing class and I'd called the Lyft and I got in my Lyft. I got in my Lyft car and I started talking to the driver and, I just was having chit chat at the end of the day. And the woman who I was talking to was a young student who was in community college at the time, and she was applying to transfer to Berkeley. And I was encouraging her, you got to apply to Berkeley, you got to transfer to Berkeley, and when you get to Berkeley, you got to look me up. And a year and a half later, she showed up in my law and entrepreneurship class, and she and her group created a business plan for an app to help asylum applicants. And it turned out that she herself had received political asylum, which was the reason why she could stay in the United States. And that to me is the story of Berkeley. It is a story of, the incredible drive of our students who come from so many humble circumstances to become incredible successes. It's the story of our entrepreneurs. And I just feel really honored to be a part of it. And I'm happy to answer any questions that might come up along the way. Thanks so much.
Wow. That's an amazing story, Sonia. David, over to you.
Sure. I'm Dave Schaefer. I'm a proud Cal professor and a serial entrepreneur who has invented technologies now being used in 5 human clinical trials. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the story of how grateful I am to Berkeley for enabling this to happen. So it all began 30 years ago when I decided to try to devote my career to human health, towards improving human health. I decided to become a chemical engineer and a bioengineer to create new medicines at the molecular level. So 22 years ago when I was applying for faculty position, I was ecstatic to get an offer from Berkeley, which I'd always viewed as a perfect home for me because it combines incredible world-class physical sciences, engineering, and biology. And of course, the Bay Area has multiple medical schools and is the birthplace of the biotech field. So being an entrepreneur, I've always liked risk, and I began building my research group around gene and stem cell therapies at a time when there were no FDA-approved products in gene and stem cell therapies. So today I'd like to briefly talk a little bit more about gene therapy, which I think is poised to make some changes in the way that medicine is done. So gene therapy is defined as the delivery of DNA medicines to the cells of a patient to try to treat human disease. And the reason it's so promising is that unlike small molecules and proteins, which turn over rapidly in the body, DNA has the potential to become a permanent part of an organ or a tissue, which raises the idea of single administration, long-term therapeutic benefit, or one and done. But there's an old joke in the field that there are only 3 problems with gene therapy: delivery, delivery, and delivery. That is, how do you deliver enough of this DNA medicine to be able to benefit a patient? So back in the 90s, the field began to use a harmless virus called AAV and to trick it into delivering the DNA medicine rather than its own DNA. But I realized when I started working with that technology back in the 90s that it lacked many of the properties needed for gene therapy, which is in a sense not at all surprising since AAV didn't evolve in nature for our convenience to use as a medicine. And unfortunately, AAV is a really complicated molecule to try to engineer and improve. But in the 1990s, a pioneering engineer named Frances Arnold discovered that evolution, which she calls the most powerful biological design process, could be used to invent brand new optimized proteins in the lab. And I'll mention that Frances is a grad of our chemical engineering department here at Cal, and she won the Nobel Prize in 2018 for inventing and applying this new approach, which she called directed evolution to enzymes. So in our lab here at Berkeley, I began to use directed evolution to invent new, highly optimized versions of AAV, and it worked. So in 2013, I co-founded a company called 4D Molecular Therapeutics down the road in Emeryville to try to take this technology into the clinic. And 7 years later, the company has 90 employees and has taken our invention into 3 human clinical trials and counting. So far we've been treating young boys suffering from 2 blinding diseases, as well as a cardiovascular disease. And next year, we're going to launch additional clinical trials for macular degeneration and cystic fibrosis. The treatments have been shown to be safe so far, and we'll start getting readouts on efficacy early next year. But as a result of this experience, I caught the entrepreneurial bug, and we've now co-founded, between me and many of my students and postdocs, 6 companies in all. One was sold to a top 3 pharma company last year, and another is prepping for an IPO as we speak. I was also grateful to become the director at QB3, which is a terrific institute on campus that has some programs, and we're going to be expanding those to be able to help young graduate students and postdoc entrepreneurs. So I've really felt that the brilliance of all my colleagues, faculty, postdocs, students, and staff, as well as our perfect location in the Bay Area, one of the major innovation hubs of the world, has made Berkeley an incredible home for me. I recently celebrated my 20-year anniversary here, and I look forward to the next 20.
Well, I've got a question for either one of you, which was asked by our audience. I'll rephrase it a little bit. As I said earlier, I was an English major at Cal. And I guess my question is, how do you see the humanities and the arts intermingling with your 2 fields in a way that creates a campus and creates innovation that is holistic and well-rounded for the world? I'll throw that one out to Sonia.
Okay, I'll start, but I'm super interested in hearing David's thoughts on this. So I think that it's important in 2 big ways. I could actually list more, but I'm just going to start with 2. One is that I think what Berkeley does so well is, we have a number of top 5 programs, and many of them are in the humanities. So critical theory, for example, in the arts and humanities is like part of the ecosystem. It's just part of the world that we live in at Berkeley, that no matter what classes you're taking, you're going to be connected to some way of looking at the world that focuses a little bit on social justice and social activism, which I think is part of our arts and humanities focus. I think it is an indelible part of what makes Berkeley special. So I think that in one way you're exposed to critical theory, which I think is very special no matter what field Berkeley students wind up focusing on. But the other thing that I think this does is it allows you to really embrace the outlier. It allows you to think creatively about solving problems. And I would venture that I think many of the discoveries that David has made in his lab are partly because of the creative thinking that you learn to embrace because of arts and humanities. So I would say, to me, there is no division between like tech, arts, and humanities. If you want to be a good technologist, you got to be able to think outside the box. And the value of thinking outside the box comes from the arts and humanities.
You nailed it when you said well-rounded, Eric, in your introduction to this question. Berkeley, as Sonia kind of alluded to, we have the most number of departments that are ranked in the top 5 of their discipline out of any university in the entire country. So when students come to me and say, I have an extra slot, I have a space in my schedule next semester, what should I take? They're probably expecting me to say, take another math class, take a computer science class. I always say, go take a political science or an art history class, because I feel that for example, if they do find themselves within a company, those companies are complex organizations that really hinge on people getting along really well together. And the humanities teach you a little bit more about what it means to be human, to relate better to other people, to communicate, to inspire, and all the intangible but incredibly important qualities that can make an organization successful.
Well, we have an open field here, folks. If you want to ask more questions, please, they can ask questions in the chat window. Is that correct? Or do we come up with our own questions? We'll wing it. This is perfect.
Looks like there's one more here from Amy.
Yeah, there's one more. To talk about the importance of grad students to research.
Yeah, the question is really around the importance of grad students to research. Can you maybe expound upon that, David, and talk to us about how they not only affect the research, but how do they interact with the undergraduate community, and does that happen, and how important is that?
Sure, we have, one of the reasons I came here is because we have brilliant students, and it's those students who really are the ones that I interact with on a daily basis when we're trying to advance our research. So I have recruit students from a couple of different programs, so I've had a chance to see them across the university, and they're truly brilliant. They both are heavily involved in undergraduate education. They're, of course, the TAs or the GSIs that teach classes, but they also spend a lot of their time doing full-time research, essentially, from their second year on. So they're the ones who create all of the data that leads into publications and patents out of all of our labs. And one thing that's different about Berkeley as well is that there is both graduate students as well as postdoctoral fellows, and Berkeley really believes in student education. So unlike a lot of research universities, we're actually more heavily weighed towards graduate students rather than postdocs, which keeps it as a very young, vibrant kind of environment that, again, is another reason this is my home.
I'll throw another question out there at both of you, because you're both a part of this incredible faculty, but it's a competitive environment out there for knowledge and talent and for people that are at the top of their field. Can you both talk, and maybe I'll start with you, Sonia, on the advantages and maybe even some of the disadvantages that you see as we try to recruit the best faculty into the Berkeley community?
This is something that I think a lot about because one of the hats that I wear at the law school is I'm one of the associate deans for faculty development and research, which means that I spend a lot of time mentoring junior faculty, and I spend a lot of time trying to keep our junior faculty from leaving us. So we have a reputation at the law school, and I would imagine in many other parts of the university, of kind of finding shining stars and bringing them here and supporting their research and then watching them become literally superstars, right? Nobel Prize winning, transformative scholars. And it is really hard at that point to keep them at Berkeley. And I would say that I think one of the things that's really tough about Berkeley is the way in which we compete with other schools that have much larger endowments. I think that historically, because Berkeley is a public school and we, have relied on public funding, I think that in many ways that it puts us a little bit behind in terms of creating those large endowments that many other schools that are our peer institutions can use to woo away our faculty. And that is like one of the biggest problems. People stay at Berkeley not because of the resources that we offer faculty. It's because of the culture, and it's because of the commitment to public service. And as a faculty member and as a senior faculty member, I'm really committed to doing everything we can to keep our talented faculty here. But it's really hard to do that in the face of, these incredibly, tremendous endowments, tremendous salary raises that other schools offer. And, it is an uphill battle. David, I don't know if you've experienced the same.
Sure. I think that, the students and the faculty at Berkeley are very, very talented. And so people just naturally get tapped on the shoulder from other places over the years, asked if they would like to, see. And, I think sometimes people perhaps owe it to themselves to see if the grass is greener or if truly Berkeley is the place for them. And one thing I've been pretty happy to see is that we have a very, very high retention rate in all the programs that I'm involved on campus. People don't leave very often. And I think that people really just identify with the culture and with the community. and feel that this place is their home. So, for example, I haven't even considered one of those other opportunities for over a decade.